Hello, everyone. It's Craig here again, and we are about to welcome in Danny De Heck from New Zealand, and he is a branding strategist. So everything these days is about the brand. It's about getting on board and having that consistent flow. And you've heard it before about the copywriting. It's the consistency. The leadership, it's the consistency. It is all about this, and this is where the branding comes into it. So let's bring Danny on board. He is a man of incredible talents, and he is a techo on the internet stuff. He's a branding person. He's run a variety of businesses, travel blogger. He has the life, and of course he lives in New Zealand, which is a great place to be as well. So let's bring Danny on right now.
G'day, mate.
Hey, Danny, welcome aboard.
Is it Kia ora? Is that what you say? That's what Kiwis expect from Kiwis,
I don't know. You're the Kiwi. I'm the Aussie, so Kia ora, I think, is it. But yes, so Danny, you're going to tell us all about branding strategy and how we need to adapt in this 2021 COVID world of ours.
The new planet we live on, isn't it? It's just completely different these days.
But it's a global planet we live on now. So the little guy's brand can become a global thing these days, which until this coronavirus came on board, we hadn't quite got our mind around, I don't think. And I think now we're getting the hang of it. So anyway, I'm going to pass over to you. I'll be right here when you need me, okay?
All right, no worries at all. So thanks for tuning in, and I really appreciate you being here today. What I'd like to do is I'm in the relationship business. So I actually want to form a relationship with you while you're listening to me. So how I'm going to go about that is I'm going to give you a little bit of a background of myself, my business, and how I actually got to where I am today. And it is a long-winded story, but I'm sure I'll make it snappy first of all. Now, Craig is going to kill me because he keeps telling me not to mention to people I'm dyslexic. But if you do understand that I am dyslexic, then you will understand a little bit more about that can-do attitude.
Did he say that again?
So there, mate?
I thought we spoke about this.
You're not meant to be He's back. But dyslexia is actually a gift, and it's something I do a bit of podcasting, as you'll find out. And one of my podcast friends said to me, he said, what's one good go-to question that you like asking people? And it is, what's one negative that you've turned into a positive? Well, I can honestly say it is actually dyslexia. But I often ask people when they hear the word dyslexia, what do you think of? And people actually say to me, oh, you can't spell and get words backwards and all that sort of stuff. Well, to me, dyslexia is actually about retaining information you want to remember. So it would be fair to say that I actually do have a memory of a goldfish. And that means that you tell me something, I have to come up with a clever, infinitive way of remembering that information, or I will simply forget it. So if you're talking to somebody dyslexic, maybe write it in a note and give it to them. They will have a better chance of remembering information. So you can imagine that at school, I didn't really have much fun. And as soon as I could, I left. So I actually left school at 14. And the first thing I did when I left school was I used to knock on people's doors and I tell them I had a lawn mowing business and would they be interested in hiring me? And they would say, oh, okay, how much do you charge? And I would say $10 an hour. And then I would probably say, they'd say, yes, I'll hire you. And I'd say, could I borrow your lawnmower? And I built up a bit of a gardening business. I did a whole lot of other things. But my first real break came along when a family friend actually offered me an apprenticeship as a painter and a decorator. And I worked for my boss for 7 years. And I think 2 months before I left, I said I'd never be self-employed. And it was the delivery boy said to me, we should go in business together. And I said, I have no idea how to do that. And he said, we'll work it out. And I said, oh, okay. So I told my employer that I was leaving him, and he was quite sad about it because I was a key person in the company at the time. And he bought me a gift. And this gift was a digital diary. I think it's got 32 KBs of memory on board. And that little device actually changed my life. It finally found a way of retaining information. And before long, I had everyone's details, their first name, their last name, their phone number in this device. And if anyone wanted to know anything or anyone, I could bring it up on my device. So that sort of started my interest in technology. And my business as when I was self-employed as a painter and a decorator, we specialized in interior paint techniques. And I quickly learned that it was really important to, whatever you're doing in business, is actually to specialize in something. So we were called interior paint technique specialists. And that led us, because we stood out in a crowd, that led us to painting. We painted the richest ladies in New Zealand's house and 5 of their family. And people were asking us to do specialist techniques. So we got this job working for a nightclub, and he wanted some far out paint color system. And as you can see in the photo, that is certainly one of them. But I befriended the nightclub owner, and he said, look, I have this room off to the side that's not used during the day. Any ideas what I could do with it? And I said, well, a guy that worked for me, he actually just sold me a computer. Have you ever thought about starting up an internet cafe? Anyway, what actually happened, that actually worked out really good. And I formed a good relationship with the bar owner, and that's Peter Young. And he said, why don't we start up an email center in Christchurch, New Zealand? And I said, okay. So next minute, we're working together. And I basically threw the painting and decorating career to the side and got involved in technology. And what I would do in this cafe, I'd be looking over people's shoulders and I'd be asking them questions. What are you doing with that? And eventually I learned how to build websites. I also learned how to connect people on the internet. And some famous people I've connected on the internet, like Jason Gunn or Richard Hadley. I actually helped them learn more about the internet, and I'm sort of becoming an educator, even at the age of, I think I'm 24 in that photo. Peter Young said, I'm going back to Australia. You can have the business. It's been awesome working with you. And I thought, what do I want to do now? So I decided to sell everything I owned. And I bought one of the first digital cameras and also a nice 11-inch screen laptop. And that was pretty cool. Then I had $300 in my back pocket, and that was my wealth at the time. And I hitchhiked around New Zealand and also relocated camper vans. And I used to knock on tourism companies' doors and ask them if they'd be interested in hiring me to build them a website. And I'll charge them $300 and $30 a month to keep it all going. Back then, we used to create websites out of plain HTML, so it was pretty cool. But eventually, I got quite a few clients together, and I formed a company called New Zealand's Information Network. And at one point, I had 45 different rental car brands using my services to promote them in New Zealand. And I attracted a lot of other really well-known Kiwi tourism-related businesses, and also some Aussie ones there, which Craig will be happy about, which are still established today. Anyway, my business was going really well. I'd managed to pull myself out of a trade into technology. I couldn't read and write. I think I had a reading level of a 9.3-year-old, and that can do Kiwi attitude has really sort of helped me go along. So the company did really well. In fact, I made a whole lot of money. I actually made about $500,000 in a year, which wasn't too bad. So I decided to do something else I'm passionate about. I went traveling, and I actually went to 25 countries in 4.5 months. And I made that a business trip as well. What I did is I made world electronic postcards, and that was how I survived. So life was going pretty good. I think I was at the age around about 32. I got married, which everyone did. And then I decided to build a house in the country, stick a satellite on the roof, and work from home and keep building my tourism related business. But life actually changed quite rapidly for me. At the age of 40, I had sort of some crossroads. Unfortunately, my lovely wife at the time wanted one of these, a divorce. Within 24 hours of her telling me that, I went from being able to do a half marathon to laying in hospital fighting for my life. I spent 2 weeks in hospital. They put 10 litres of antibiotics through my body, and I could actually feel it going through my veins at the time. And I didn't really know where my future belonged. So going through a divorce, what do? You get yourself a commercial premises. I used to have the offices downstairs, and I used to live upstairs, and it was conveniently located 10 metres from a railway line. So life was pretty good. In fact, I actually felt shocking. I felt terrible. I didn't really have many friends, and I was incredibly lonely. So rather than sitting on my ass, I got up and I decided that I would start helping other lonely people. So I got onto a dating site, as you do, and I went into the events area and started organising events. First one I organised was a biking and a dog walking an event. And we eventually got a group of people coming along every Saturday morning. And that eventuated into social clubs. We went biking every Saturday morning. We went hiking. And we used to have around about 25 different hikes that we used to do each year. And eventually we actually had about 500 people in my social club. So there's a method of me telling you all this sort of stuff. And I've obviously had lunch in some beautiful places in Aotearoa. Then we started having potluck dinners. That's where you bring a plate with food on it and you share it with other people. That led to other opportunities. Everything you do in life leads to an opportunity. So if you put yourself out there, it will lead to an opportunity. This guy come along, oh my goodness, Mike Catton. And he lives life by example, and he asked me to help organise and promote an event called Inspired, and I was an integral part of that venture, and I really enjoyed that. And then one day somebody come along to me and they said, hey Danny, I think there's a company that would be right up your alley. So I actually purchased this business called Elite Six Business Networking, which was a business networking company that got other companies together and we all help promote each other. So I do live by this. Zig Ziglar has been a big inspiration. You can have everything in life that you want if you just help other people get what they want. I really truly believe that. I think it's a good thing to live by. I'm a big traveler. I'm an adventurer. I got through some horrible parts of my life, got myself back on the feet. And at the age of 50, I decided to get back into my travels. And this isn't really related. It's going to make Craig disappointed, but I've been to some really unusual countries. And the reason I do that, this is Cambodia. I think I chased COVID out of China. This was 16, 17 months ago. I went to Bangladesh, and I have a passion for photography. I went to India after saying I'd never return again. I saw one of the most beautiful things ever was the Taj Mahal. Couldn't believe it. Got back from my last big travel, and my business networking company that I've had for 8 years, and I'd had 1,500 people come and go, went from having groups like this to running meetings like this. And it's just everything I ever did had changed, and I've had to reinvent myself. So just like you're probably reinventing what you're doing right now. And I've had to adapt, flex, mold myself into the current climate. One thing that has never changed in my business career is myself. And this is why I'm really focusing on building my personal brand. And it was actually originally Craig, about 12 months ago, sent me a message in LinkedIn. And it basically was a Loom video, him looking through my LinkedIn profile. And he said, I can see all the things you're doing. You're doing this and you're doing that and you're doing this, but it's not consistent. And I had to look at what I actually had and think I actually need to rethink this. And that's what I've done. So my personal brand could be anything from target shooting to a serious, mysterious me, to an adventurer who loved the outdoors, a guy that would drive crazy tractors that never went anywhere. And I have a bit of a array of different images sort of portraying who I want people to think I am, but I've never really been focused until I've started really looking at my own personal brand. So one thing that I have got out of COVID and the lockdown is that it's time for us to think differently. And I really, truly believe that we really want to look at our personal brand. So one thing that I've spent a lot of time on lately is a little social media platform that's just started out. I think there's about 15 million users since the beginning of the year. It's called Clubhouse. And it's really tuned in to my thinking, because when I'm using this app, it's a drop-in audio service like a live podcast. And everyone that's on it, all their advertising, all their marketing is out the window. And it comes down to a couple of really basic things: their profile icon and the way they portray themselves. And they're all trying to share their experience, knowledge, and skills with each other. But some people are there to take and some people are there to give. But eventually I built up some really good friends on here. And then the next minute I find them on my website and they're going through my personal brand and they are seeing what I'm doing. And I'm now helping these people build their own personal brand. So I have got a couple of examples of stuff here. Like I gave somebody, a friend of mine, David Sherwin, an image of mine, and he turned it into a little wee cartoon image. And then I went back to him and I said, this wee image you did for me is actually of great value. And I said, I want to pay you for it. And he goes, no, I'm just doing it because I just want to help a few people out and I want to give back to the community. So we encouraged him to set up a buy me a cup of coffee account. And he put that, when he sent these pictures off to people, they actually started donating money to him. And within the first 3 days, he had 80 people buy him a cup of coffee. 2 of those people bought him 10 coffees. One of them bought him 20 coffees. Now, David has actually built himself a whole business out of helping build people's personal brands. And there's a real market out there. It's screaming out, it's hurting my eardrums, that everybody needs a personal brand. Everyone needs a personal brand because you can change jobs. You can be a painter and a decorator. You can be a business networking guru. You can be a website developer. You can be a traveler. But the default in what you do should be your personal brand. And I do use LinkedIn a lot as my live CV, but I think everyone really needs to think about their personal brand. So David's now been branding quite a few different people. I don't know if you recognize this guy. And I said to him, if you don't ask, you don't get. So Grant Cardone now uses one of David's little wee icons because his personal brand is really important to him. So I want to share something with you today that you may not think about. And it's a little PowerPoint presentation here. And it's about domain names. And I just wanted to give you a part because I do have courses on this. And I just wanted to run you through one that I think will benefit you. So hopefully you can see this, it's a little bit small. I have the domain name for my personal brand called danny.co.nz. And when you go and register one of those, you can buy a domain name to match your country if you want to. And you can build a whole website just on that one little domain name. And I encourage people to get their country suffix. Now, I'm not going to lose you on this one, but this isn't really what I wanted to show you. But by having, I've been building brands for quite a few years and they stop and start, but I'm encouraging people to get their own domain name for their own brand. And often people keep pushing brands that aren't associated with something directly as their name. So I saw a good friend of mine the other day, and this is what I really wanted to show you. And his domain name for his website was builditbootcamppodcast.com. And I said, oh my goodness, I would never even remember that, especially being dyslexic. So why don't you just get a short domain name and have it structured better to promote your podcast? So he said, what do you recommend? And I said, well, his name's Haywood. So do a search if you want. See if your last name is available.com. If not, why not see if it's available, a top level domain like the last, like .co.nz for New Zealand, or in Australia, .com.au, or if you can get a .com, great. But he's known as LJ. So we now have got the domain name for LJ called ljhayward.com. And that means that he can have a lovely email address called info@ljhayward.com. And that's nice, short and precise, a lot easier to remember than built@bootcamppodcast.com. And then he set up his website with www.ljhayward.com. And for his podcast, he can actually have podcast.ljhayward.com rather than having that great big long name. And later on, he may decide that he actually wants to do workshops maybe. Then he can switch out the www part and put workshops.ljhayward.com. Then he's always got people around his branding. So with the help of David, this is LJ's new brand, a new look for his website. He's got a nice cartoony image, and he's gone to David and he said, look, I want to have a personal brand. He's a podcaster. So his podcast now has a little icons and all the names to match. And it's just a lovely, nice, clean way to actually represent his brand. Now, most people don't really put much value in having a good domain name, but you think it from LJ Hayward's point of view, his brand can travel with him for the rest of his life. Even if he has to get a job one day, he can still keep that and his brand and whatever he's doing right now. So if you looked at my brand, I have my website is deheck.com. So if I told you to go to Deheck, you probably wouldn't know how to spell it. Most people try to ram a C in there for some reason, but DEHEK.com brings up my website address. My email address is danny@deheck.com. It's nice, short and precise. My podcast is podcast.deheck.com. My workshops are workshop.deheck.com. And when people ask me for my Facebook or my Instagram account or my LinkedIn account, I've set up what you call a link tree. Now, the link tree service I use allows me to have what you call a CNAME or a subdomain. So that means I can tell you guys, if you wanted to look at my Facebook page or any of my other social media, you could go to links.deheck.com, or in your case, links.yourname.com or .co.nz or whatever suffix you manage to get. And it's a nice, tidy, uniform way of just having a domain name. So even though like my billing system is danny.deheck.com, and when I'm talking to people, every time they hear me tell them one part of my domain name or anything, it's actually strengthening my brand. And this is all just because of a $25 a year domain name. I can set it up correctly. So when I'm teaching my course, I'm teaching you how to go into the DNS settings of your domain name, how to configure it properly. I'm also giving you advice on different services that you could use, all aspects of understanding how to set up things correctly. Right, so talking about my course, if you did go to workshops.deheck.com, you would find my course. And Craig has actually inspired me to put together a course for the first time ever. And I've actually made it quite simple at the moment. But over the next 3 to 4 months, I'm going to be adding more and more content. And I'm going to be showing you every aspect of what I've learned along the way. So things I want to show you in the course is obviously how to set up, how to buy, how to pick, where to purchase a domain name. A lot of companies out there at the moment are getting you in a sales funnel where if you go and purchase a domain name, you're owned by them. But I want to teach you how to look after your own domain name and have total control over it, so you know how to set it up. The other platform that I'm really big on, I get sick of people saying I just use Squarespace or Wix. They are nice, glossy looking websites, but they don't perform very well when they're in the search engines. So I have a whole course just on how to set up a WordPress website. And it's obviously step by step, right through to getting the domain name set up properly, how to handle your users, how to create posts and how to create blogs, how to market them, how to set up the SEO part of it, all the complicated step. Every single plugin that I talk about, I've got a how-to video on how to understand it and get the maximum out of having those plugins set up properly. Also with social media, if you go to deheck.com and you look at the very top of my website, you'll see that every icon that links off to my social media actually is all branded and consistent all the way through. And that's because I went to a graphics person and I had my branding designed properly. It cost me about $1,000, and they come back with all the different colors for my brand. And then I chopped up all the logos so I could use them on each of the platforms. So often I talk about a website to a rugby game. And the similarity is when you have a website that you can manage and you can add and you can remove content at your leisure, that's your playing field. And all the grandstands that are around are actually social media. Now, when you're in the grandstand of Facebook, you don't want to keep on saying to people and tapping them on the shoulder and saying, come to my website over here. You want to be able to talk to people and liaison with them in the environment they're used to, because they're sitting in the Facebook grandstand for a reason. But why not have your branding in order? So when people see you in the audience, like my color scheme, if you saw me wearing my clothes and I'm all branded up and I've got my top and I'm looking uniform, you would recognize me on any of the different platforms that I'm in. So LinkedIn's amazingly powerful for business related people. I use Facebook. I used to have 50 Facebook pages that I used to manage and market myself. I've had Facebook pages with 20,000 users in them, and you can, build them up. All those techniques on how to handle your social media and how to have your brand consistent throughout is what I'm an expert in. I specialize in. So it's really cool. I reckon that everyone, and I mean everyone that has a personal brand, should have a podcast. When I started podcasting, I was actually trying to record what I call a think tank meeting that I used to run for my business networking crew. And every Friday, we used to come up with a topic. And at the end of the week, the 10 groups that used to meet around Christchurch used to get together at 9 o'clock on a Friday morning. And we used to sit in a round table and we used to come up with a business topic and thrash it out. It was so good that I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool to make this into a podcast? So I bought all my recording gear, set up microphones around the room, and tried recording in an echoey room. It was a disaster. But we did publish a weekly podcast from the content. Then COVID happened, and I brought all my recording gear home. And now I'm using things like StreamYard or Riverside FM or Zoom, and I'm recording and capturing really good conversations. And I've learned how to find people to interview, and I've used LinkedIn to tap people on the shoulder and say, hey, would I be able to interview you on my podcast? So learning how to podcast was a sort of a steep curve, but knowing where to host your podcast, knowing how to get your podcast in iTunes and all those different platforms like Spotify. So when people are talking to you and they say, how do I find your podcast? Just go to What the Heck podcast on any podcasting platform and you'll find me. And they'll go, well, how do you get yourself in there? These are all the things I help people with. What recording gear do I need? Do I have to go and buy a mixer tuner? Do I buy a dynamic mic? What type of microphones? What sort of camera gear do I use? All these questions will be answered in my podcasting 101, because podcasting used to be all about recording audio. Today, podcasters actually knowing how to stream your content onto different platforms in real time. So you really got to figure out what your podcast is trying to achieve. But that's part of the course that I'll be putting together. I haven't done that one yet. And then SEO is a massive part of, understanding. I mean, I get sick of these SEO companies. If you go to my website, deheck.com, and you go to my ebook, because I want to be the first book I'm ever going to read will be my own. I actually published some caution on these SEO companies, because it's like turning on a tap when you start spending money on SEO. As soon as you turn it off, all the traffic stops. So what I'm encouraging people to do is learning how to put content on their own website that is evergreen content. So just imagine this. I did a post on social media the other day, and I said to people, if I could show you a way of getting 10 or 30 visits to your website every day for 15 years without having to pay for it, would you be interested in listening to me? And they go, oh yeah, how? And I said, just write a blog. I have a blog, and you try me out right now if you're able to. Search for New Zealand slang words or New Zealand slang word meaning. It's a simple blog that literally took me about an hour to put together. And that blog gives us between 300 and 900 visits to my website every month. It's been doing it for 15 years. So why wouldn't you want to learn how to write a blog, have it optimized, and put it out there on the internet and get free traffic rather than driving people to your website? Another one I did the other day because I was on Clubhouse. Somebody emailed me, and this is quite a good one, about a scam. And it was basically saying that we are a bag company and we would like you to promote our bags. If we send you a bag and you take 5 photos and professional photos, we'll pay you $200 a photo. And if you use those same photos on your own social media, we'll pay you an additional $30 per photo. And I thought, oh, that sounds pretty cool. So they sent me their website. They said, pick out a bag you want, use this coupon. And then when I used the coupon, the bag was free. I thought, what have I got to lose? My partner's a professional photographer. She can take the photos, and we're going to make $1,150. However, when I got to the checkout, it wanted, I think it was $15.75 US for the shipping. Damn, it was a whole lot. It was a scam. A week's worth of chatting to this company, and I saw what they were doing. So with that information, I actually thought I'd do a video telling people about my scam. I wrote a blog about that scam, and I'm not sure. I think I did a little podcast on it as well. Put it all together as a blog, and I put it out there to the masses because I knew this company was rampant at sending traffic around the globe trying to scam other people. And the first thing most people do if they think something is a scam, you should all do it, is do a bit of research on Google. So that one blog that I did actually received about 800 visits in 4 weeks. So that's what we call trending content. So I want to teach you guys how to actually find trending content and have your say on it. So a good wee tip right now would to be write a blog about why you love Clubhouse. What is Clubhouse? How do I get an invite to Clubhouse? Because that's trending information. And you want to have a website where you can put this sort of information in it, and it doesn't. So if you went to my website, looked at my blog area, I have a whole array of different types of blogs in there. If I was a fisherman, would I sit there with a hook and a fishing rod on the back of my fishing boat, catching one fish at a time? Or would it be better, like myself, to have 1,000 blogs on your website, catching all different types of fish, using all different types of different techniques? This is the sort of stuff that you need to understand and get your head around. It's not rocket science, it's heck science. The other one is all the work that you do, you really want to have, you want to be able to gauge what you do. Now, when you first set up your website, you need to set up Google Analytics. You need to set up a Google My Business page. You want to learn the do's and don'ts of Google. And I always say to people, get in bed with Google. And they go, what? And I go, because you really want to have a good understanding of Google. And everything I can do, like when I set up my email accounts, I set them up with G Suite. And I give Google access to every part of my website. I let them spider through it. And I want to teach you guys the importance of getting in bed with Google, and having it under one umbrella, because at the moment, Google is where you're going to get a lot of your traffic from. Well, that basically is what I'm offering. So I do have a course, and it is not that dear. I think it's very affordable. It's $1,370 New Zealand dollars. So it's a little bit cheaper for you Aussies. And basically today, what I'd really like to be able to offer you guys is 30% off, because it's always good to get a special when you've spent time watching somebody. And I'm going to give you 12 months access to the course as well. And I was listening to what Craig was saying earlier on today. He was basically saying that this information that you're watching right now is going to be available probably for a month. And he reckons the only reason he's really doing that, if you haven't taken action within a month, then you probably never will. And it's just a wasted opportunity. You know, I'm really passionate about helping you guys, and I'm sure I can make a difference. So I'm quite hoping to get Craig back on here and maybe ask him some questions. I did have some things that I wanted to show other people as well, but perhaps we could do that on a web browser if we have time. How's our time going, Craig?
Yep, you're good for time. Easy. So
Excellent.
if there is anybody that we want to, but I'd love to have a chat now if I could.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Okay, well, as per usual, I write lots of notes. I'm going to check out Clubhouse, that's for sure, find out a bit more about that. I have my own domain, craigkeegan.com. When my son was born, I got him christopher-keegan.com as well. And I do believe strongly that it is the best way to go. You need to have your name out there. It's good from an SEO perspective when people go looking for your name. It also looks good that, oh, you've got your own domain.
Yes.
And just as a side issue, I know this isn't branding, but I come from an IT security background, so I've got to throw this in. I have, for every organization that, or anybody that I ever talk to, I always use that organization's name at craigkeegan.com as my email address for them.
Right, yep.
That way I know when they're selling my email address on to someone else and there's identity theft happening there. So from a security perspective as well, you can put some great security in place with your own domain as well as look good. And it gets curiosity as well. People say, oh, that's your domain or that's you. And it just creates curiosity for people so that you can then start talking to them about other things as well. What do you do? Oh, why have you got that?
Well, when I'm telling people my email address, I have to say it really slowly because I have to go Danny, D-A-N-N-Y, and then I go at, and I wait for them to write the at, and then I go deheck.com because it's too short, you see. But normally they're expecting like dannydeheck@gmail.com because, you know, and I don't know about you, but I get emails all day long from SEO gurus, and they always reply to me with a Gmail address. And
yes,
straight away go, well, if you're that good at SEO, you'll know the importance of having your own domain name. And
okay, then you've got me on this one. You've got me on my pedestal, ranting now. It's like when you go to someone on LinkedIn and you look at their contact details and they've got fred@gmail.com. Well, LinkedIn isn't a personal thing. It is a business thing. It should be fred@mycompany.com.
Yep.
It's about that branding. It's about having that presence where you look professional all the time.
And I think one thing I do, if I do get an email, like when I first met you, Craig, I did actually go and look up your domain name. Anyone that has an email address, you can whack the first part off, chuck in the last part. I often put it into a website called archive.org, and I can see the history of the company. So I know with mydeheck.com, you can go back and see my very first websites. And that when I correspond with anybody, I'm using that research. So that backpack scam I talked about, that company didn't have a history. So so I knew that was more likely to be a scam. But also it's nice to watch companies grow. So I use those little wee sites and my deheck.com has been around for about 15 plus years now. There's only 25 Dehecks in the world.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
So, yes, well, you talk about that, 25 Dehecks in the world. Well, there are 3 Craig Keegans in Australia.
Right.
And one's there's 3 Craig Keegans around. One's a international soccer coach in England, another one's an international hockey player in Tasmania, and myself. So all people with a high presence. Therefore, you have to ensure that you are, when people type it into Google, that you're taking up the majority, if not all, of the top 10. Just so that people can identify with you. But I was talking with Cal Holliday, who's coming on board later tomorrow, I think. And when I was chatting with him a couple of days ago, he said, "Oh, you've got a blue shirt and a red tie on." He said, "Is that your brand?" And I said, "Oh, wow. I don't know." And he said, "Well, yes, it is." He said, "That's what you've got out there." He said, "Every time people are talking with you," he said, "that's what you're wearing." He said, "That is part of your brand. It's a part of who people perceive you as." So you do have to be careful, because what people take from what they see of you can become part of your brand without you even realizing it.
See this, Craig. This is interesting. Like I've searched for Danny DeHeck, all one word, and that's what most people, I think, if you have a search for yourself. Now, for years, I was always trying to come up when people search for Danny NZ, and there's this little friggin' what do you call those guys? DJ that keeps outranking me in the search engine. And Denny's restaurant used to always outrank me. But now I've got my brand sorted. I actually come out number 2, and I still have to compete with the DJ. But my brand is actually now coming up in the results. And I think that's really good. I mean, the amount of times I go to somebody and said, "Look, can you just go to a web page and search for put your website address in, like danny.co.nz." Most people will put it in the search bar. And then they don't put it up the top where they're meant to. And so if you don't have your website well indexed by search engines, a lot of people are going to get distracted or not be able to find you. But my personal brand actually works really well, and it comes up in the search engines. But I think it is, I think you actually really drove that home to me, is my brand is actually Danny DeHeck. So my Instagram comes up, my Facebook comes up, my Twitter account comes up, my Pinterest account comes up, my LinkedIn account comes up, my TikTok account comes up, my images come up, and I dominate my own brand. And every social media platform I can be on, I will, because this is actually gives my brand DeHeck.com actually more backlinks. So if I had somebody do a bit of analysis on my own brand the other day, and what they call my Google authority, and they said, "You don't need any optimization, because I've got so many backlinks, and all the social media is pushing my website up in the results." And that basically means, like, if like I did a post about this event that we're having today, and I'm pretty sure that this blog is only a few days old, but if I search for it, I'll come up in the results straight away. And you can imagine, wanting to know how many people click on this, what difference, so it's quite neat when you know that you can publish content and get it found really quick. So notice I've searched for Entrepreneur Virtual Summit in the search engine. Now, in the video area here, we've got the event. I don't think this is your event, but in here we've got the video coming up in the results, and that was posted three days ago. And you can come through here and you can find, here's my blog. So if I go into this podcast here, you can see that's me talking about the summit that we're on at the moment. And then if I use the content here, it links back to my website. So I'm leaving the grandstand and coming back to my website. And when they're on my website, I'm hoping they're going to get distracted by my videos on the side. They might start listening to a podcast. They might join my mailing list. They might see my other YouTube videos. And that's what I use these fish hooks for.
Yes.
the workshops. So I think, by having your brand, doing its thing, you can basically spend all day long writing blogs and having free advertising coming back to yourself, if that makes sense.
Well, if that's what you're inclined to do, but if we'll come to other ways of doing that during this summit as to how else you can do that, because we don't want people sitting there writing blogs all day. That isn't what the entrepreneurs, it may be, but we've got to give people choices, and we will.
Yeah.
Later on in this summit, we'll give them ways that they can achieve that same result in a different manner. And with my profile here, I'm just going to borrow this screen for a second.
Oh, good. Okay, let's have a look.
So raise your profile, build your brand, attract more clients. And that is exactly what you're talking about here, is raising your profile, and you're doing that by doing your blog entries and getting your SEO right, building your brand, tick, and the end result of that is the attraction of more clients, rather than having to go out there and pay Google and pay Facebook lots and lots of money. And that's why I approach it that way. Raise your profile, build your brand, and then attract more clients.
And learning how to engage as well is so important. And so people don't. I did actually do a bit of speaker training, and I went to Toastmasters for 5 years, and just learning how to engage. And the old give value is just where it's all at the moment. Help people overcome those obstacles. It's all you need to do. There's, if you go out there with a hidden agenda, I had a guy just yesterday, he's trying to figure out how to do something. He said, let's flip on to, live, and I'll share your screen and I'll just do it for you. Oh, you don't have to. No, let's just do it. Look, you're wasting my time talking about it. Let's get into it, and help people overcome those obstacles. Next minute, that same guy's on my social media, saying something nice about me. And he's giving me kudos, basically. And I didn't ask for it. And, but that's how it sort of works these days, is you help each other out. And anyone that first meets me, I don't want them to forget who I am. And that's where my personal brand, it doesn't matter what platform I'm talking to these people on that they want to engage with me in, they will remember my brand. As soon as they see my dark green color, my unusual name, they will remember who I am, and we'll have a connection somewhere down the road.
So why are you here today? You're here today because I asked you if you would come on board, and you've already been kind enough to mention two things during your presentation of me doing a Loom video of you a year ago, and also training programs. You're now started a new business on training programs.
I built my whole business around that Loom thing, mate. All this new program, because I'm dyslexic. So you sent me a video. You brought up my LinkedIn profile, and you went through and gave me advice and tips. You shared your experience, knowledge, and skill. You've never asked me for anything, in return. And you gave me, you just gave me your time freely. And every time I do something, I'm seeking Greg's approval in a way, because I want to, I want to have it right, and I get a lot of criticism all the time, and it's constructive, but, from people who say and don't do, but you do, and you are doing it. So like the summit, you've put this together and you've done this and you're doing it. So good on you.
Well, this is the first. It's not the last. It is the first, but it is, as I said, take the next step. And yes, it's all about taking that next step and moving forward. So people have got to take that next step. Now, the next step from your side of things is I want people to come and connect with you on your social media, and, let me guess, they could do that by going to links.theheck.com. So they could do that, or they could go into the online training program that we've got set up for this summit, and they will have some activities in there to connect with you on LinkedIn, connect with you on Facebook. And the whole idea about this summit is to lead, and thank you, Glenn, for your previous session, is to lead by example, to show you what you should be doing. And what I'm doing here with this summit is, with the connections in the training program of connecting up with the presenters like this, is that is keeping them in contact with you and the industry professionals on a permanent basis, on a regular basis. People may not be ready today to do stuff, but they will be ready tomorrow. And if they're not working with these people, learning from these people and building trust, then they might miss tomorrow. So that's why we're putting all this together and
I think
connecting people up.
I live by some really, I do a lot of things now, and there's this, I've forgotten who said it, but somebody famous, and they basically, if you can do, I think it was Winston Churchill actually, I think if you can do a job in 2 minutes, do it now. Because, or in my case, I use notes on my computer, and I have about 700 notes, and I've categorized things I need to do so I don't forget to do, because people share a lot of knowledge. And all of a sudden I think that's good. I'll pull out my phone and I'll voice it onto my phone and keep it. And then I'll have a way where I go through my last 50 notes, and anything I haven't completed within 6 months, I delete, because it's obviously not important. And I just think that's what people need to do. I mean, I'm all about personal brand, but I've had my De Heck brand for years, but it's only been the last 12 months where I've really started to focus on it. And now I'm getting around about 130 to 150 people a day coming on my brand to have a look, to check out what I'm doing, listening to my podcast, or interacting on some social media, something or other. And it's starting to sort of pay off a wee bit, and that's the exciting part about having your own brand. And it doesn't matter what I do in life anymore, because I always have my personal brand, and one day when I'm on my yacht, I'll have my personal brand.
Well, my personal brand starts with my LinkedIn profile, and that's why I always go back to that and getting that right with people. And that even started off our communications originally, is that LinkedIn profile, because in this COVID world of ours, that is the first stop that people look at when they go looking for someone, they look at LinkedIn, and you've got to have that right.
Why do so many people, I want to ask you a question, why do so many people don't have time for LinkedIn? Because I find it the most valuable resource out of all my social media. And people often, like when it's your birthday, I'll get 50 people wishing me happy birthday. And then I'll write back, and I've actually come up with some long-winded replies because I was getting these people wishing me all these happy birthdays, but they're not interacting with me. They're just sending me a button click. And I go, what are you doing this for? So now the other day, I don't know if this is a good idea, but I unfollowed everybody, and I followed 20 people that I want to follow, because they're the 20 people that I'm really interested in. And now I engage on their content. And I thought that was pretty hectic, excuse the pun, but I found that as a really good way of using LinkedIn, because otherwise you're just part of the noise and you're getting all the posts of people just doing the actions, but there's no people sitting there and think, I'm going to chat to Craig for a little bit and show some real interest in Craig and ask him how his day's going and listen to what he's saying. And I'm finding I'm getting a lot more out of LinkedIn doing that than I am. But so many people just don't get, I don't know what I'm trying to say, really. People aren't using it correctly.
Well, I developed a system, and I went and deleted 1,000 people off my LinkedIn profile because going back to what Mark was talking about knowing your avatar, knowing who you focused on. So I narrowed it down to 5 countries.
Yep.
And then I got rid of all the people in there as well that weren't in the right area. And then I don't go out and connect with people on LinkedIn. They come to me. So I get between 6 and 8 people No, sorry, I accept between 6 and 8 people a day.
Wow.
I get about 20, but I accept about 6 to 8 a day.
I'm privileged.
And are they a premium user of LinkedIn? For starters, is one of my key things.
Oh, yep.
The reason that I look at that is, are they taking LinkedIn seriously?
Mm.
Because if they're not a premium user of LinkedIn, they probably aren't taking it seriously.
Yeah.
So that is one of my considerations of, do they get knocked back from the connections? Obviously, everybody on the summit gets a connection because that's one of the tasks.
Yeah.
So is to connect up. So they'll be approved no matter what. But it's a matter of identifying the premium people on LinkedIn that fit your criteria so that you can develop that relationship with, you can develop that brand with. People know that I connect people together. I connect great people together. That's what I do.
Yeah. Yep. That's interesting because that's the biggest asked question I get about LinkedIn. Should I pay for it or not? And I go, well, I've been paying for it since 2015. I said, so yes, is my answer. But, I just, what would you, how do you answer that question? I mean, obviously you just explained
Well, I
that.
think we're in the perfect time to answer that question. It's like if I go down to a shop down the street right now, and you may not understand this being a Kiwi, but right now I live in Melbourne. If they're not wearing if the shop assistant isn't wearing a mask,
Yeah.
then I might go to another shop.
Yep.
Now, that business has now moved me on to a different business. Will I go back to that first business? Maybe not, I don't know. But I'm certainly going back to the one that was wearing the mask. So it is a matter of people don't know that they're losing customers. They don't know that they're losing prospects and opportunities.
Yeah.
So if you are a premium LinkedIn user, you're not going to lose prospects, are you? But if you're not a premium LinkedIn user, you may be losing them and you just don't know it.
That's how I treat a lot of the software I use. I'm always purchasing the software. I'm never using another tool I use all the time is Calendly, and I use that for booking. And I use the premium version. It's $15 US a month, but it enables me to be in a category above others, because when I go to somebody who wants to book an appointment with me, or they want me to book an appointment with them, and I go to their Calendly account and it says free, it just tells me that they either they just don't value the service, or they don't see, it just doesn't look right to me. And I just don't, as soon as I see them paying for it, then I think they're professional. And and that's what I like about it. I don't want to betray myself the same way.
And just to reiterate what you said earlier, if you want to book an appointment, it's book.craigkeegan.com.
Yeah. That's cool. Have I got mine? I don't think Calendly allows me to do that when you've got one up on me then. So maybe.
Oh, no. All you do is create the subdomain on your domain, and then you put a redirection in.
Oh, I hate redirections, mate, but that's a different story. But
what I want to reiterate with you is that you are a person with so many lives. You've done so much. You've achieved so much. You've run the small businesses. You've run the online businesses, branding side. You've done the networking side. There is so much that people can get from you, learn from you, so much that they can do with you. I encourage everybody to, one, get into the training program, connect up with you, connect up with your LinkedIn, connect up with your Facebook page. And I've got a little graphic here. You said you had some programs going. Now, you've got a single payment and a double payment, or two payments, part payment. So people can just go to those links and connect up there. But yeah, get on with Danny. And the world really is open to you because he covers so much, I can assure you.
I really do want people
I'm really
to give it
impressed.
a go. No, thank you. And it is, I look back and I think, boy, I do know a lot. Like after 25 years of fluffing around on the internet, and when you're on your own mission and you accomplish things yourself, like people come to me and they want me to do what I'm doing for them. And I'm going, no, you've got to learn this stuff yourself. Like, and having a personal brand website is great because that's your wee baby. It's something that you don't send off to a website developer and say, build my personal brand. I really want people to be able to log into their own WordPress website, edit it, modify the look, create a blog, and send it out without having to make it a big, massive task. And that's what it's really about. It's just getting there. I think I often say that the internet was, to me, was like a jigsaw puzzle. And I just had to keep doing the bits. And I had to find all the straight edges and do all the edges. And then all of a sudden, the overall picture become very clear. And I think being dyslexic, I have to have things explained to me in different ways until I get it. But once I get it, I never forget it. and I want to show people how to get past that. I want to build that bridge where they have the confidence to actually get their head around technology. I don't want people to say, oh, it's all too complicated, ha, ha, ha. I want to say, no, seriously, you can get your head around this. It's not that complicated. And that's my mission really, is to help those people overcome those obstacles. So that's my rant.
Well, I'm so glad that you put these programs together so that you can help more people, because we need it out there. We really do. There are people that are just so focused on business that they don't, one, understand this, two, they get scared by it, and three, overwhelmed. So having something nice and simple to work with is the way to go. So I thoroughly commend you for what you've done and what you've put together, and I know it's going to work for a lot of people.
That's right. Now, my disclaimer, by the way, is I haven't quite finished all the courses. However, I have done about 15 of the videos that I need to start the journey, and I'm actively putting 3 or 4 videos on there every week. And I want people to start from the beginning and come along through the way, and also interact with me and tell me what you're looking for, what obstacles you're facing at the moment, and then we'll get it done. But I am committed to putting every bit of knowledge up here on a short video that's easy and precise, easy to understand.
Thanks. None of us are finished here.
Oh.
As in, you say you haven't finished these courses. None of us are finished. Everything that we do in our businesses is always under review and always being updated. It's all a work in progress. So with your courses, getting them down there and then getting the feedback so that you understand the avatar that Mark was talking about, that is key. That really is. So, okay, well, we are on a break for what? An hour at this stage.
All right.
So we'll be back in an hour, and we have a group session with Danny, Mark, and Glenn. So we're going to round all this up and put it all together and see how we can make this work for you. So see you in an hour. Thanks, Danny.
All right. Good on you, mate. Bye. Thank you.